Hello everyone, welcome back to the Amazon European Masters. We just saw ESCA losing out in their matchup against BDS Academy in Jamada. We're going to jump into some highlights now just to remind ourselves of what happened, but game, I mean, it wasn't particularly close.
No, it wasn't. I think, you know, at the end of the day, it was a bit of a slow-paced game, but it was also a quick game, so it kind of definitely made it feel a little bit faster-paced than it perhaps was. But it was all about the early dragon stacking for BDSA. That's what eventually came into effect, which kind of made the mountain a little bit too steep for ESCA to climb. They had these very, you know, unorthodox tools, we'll call them, with the Yone in the mid lane. Nocturne, not something we see too commonly. And even though they did find a little bit of success attacking the mid lane, it wasn't, you know, consistent snowball. And when we started to get to the team fights like these, the third dragon, which BDSA already had 2 stacked up, you know, sure, this looks like an amazing flank from HeSSZero, but the issue is, look at the side of ESCA. Mrozku, Zona, no ultimate, they can't follow up on that, even though they had pretty decent angles, especially the Yone, to try and follow up on that ultimate. And then we get, you know, a team fight like this, for example, where the flank comes in, it looks pretty good, and then, you know, it gets turned on its head very briefly with things like the Gnar ultimate. You know, the dive just doesn't really work. Zona just about kind of limps away. But then, you know, you have these brief moments where you think, okay, if Mrozku can do something like this in the next team fight where there's actually follow-up and, you know, snaps in, snaps out, maybe ESCA have a bit of a chance. But the 4th dragon was taken from underneath their noses. They couldn't get access to the river. And then this fight effectively sealed the deal because BDSA were able to go up towards the Baron and steal that one away. And again, I also want to just quickly highlight Eradote in some of these team fights. And actually, we'll see it in this replay too. I'm glad we have this replay in the real. Look at Mrozku when he tries to dive in. Spirit Unbound, he gets ultimate, and then he gets handshook, and he can't move for the entirety of the duration. By the time he casts Fate Sealed, the team fight's done. And a lot of that just comes down to Eradote keeping an eye on the key target that could potentially turn the fights around, whilst also, you know, managing to handle the rest of the divers with his team.
And off that, BDSA just super quickly able to close out the game. There were only 3 or 4 highlights in this reel because honestly, the game was slow until they decided, hey, let's win a couple of team fights. Let's win the game. And that's exactly what they did. As you can see,
yeah, look at the gold graph.
They were just like, you could see the moment when Chico was like, do you know what? Maybe we should win this game of League of Legends.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, it was a slow-paced game for the first 20 minutes. A couple of kills traded, yes, but it was more about BDSA just taking the dragons for free. The first 2 pretty much went uncontested. There was no cross-map or anything going on. It's not like ESCA were proactively trying to attack the top side. They weren't. They were kind of sitting on their hands. It's very, you know, Ultra Liga characteristic to not really get too much done in the early game. And this is one of those cases where I feel like, you know, when you have things like the Yone, the Nocturne, you want to try and get the ball rolling. They just didn't. And then, like you say, it got to a point where Zico in particular, of course, 18.5k damage, 7.5k more than anybody else on his team, which is like, okay, we can end the game now. I've had enough of this game. And once that soul was picked up, it felt like it was going to be a pretty downward spiral. We just didn't expect it to end as quickly as it did.
And this is a fascinating comparison to game number 1, where we said, hey, game number 1, Bifrost are the most Ultra Liga team, not from the Ultra Liga that we've seen so far. They're a little bit slow, you know, they're methodical, but they come in and C-Boy's like, I'm gonna kill all the things, or I'm actually going to assist in the rest of my team killing all the things. Second game, we come into ESCA, who are an Ultra Liga team, playing like an Ultra Liga team, but they just don't have an opportunity to do anything. Mrozku comes in and makes a couple of individually quite nice plays, but a couple of individually quite nice plays isn't going to achieve you very much. Zona, who is a player that I feel like we've been talking about a reasonable amount when it comes to ESCA, on the Nocturne, really didn't achieve anything. Quiet. Nothing was really done on this Nocturne pickup. And you said, hey, this guy's going to be farming up to 6, 7, and then we're probably going to see a little bit of action. Well, point 1 was fine. He farmed up. But then point 2 was 4 dragons lost.
Yeah, like that's kind of the problem. Like we said, Shio was going to have kind of free reign. Whilst he didn't necessarily have, you know, a lot of in-lane setup to get ganks going, he had the lane priority, and that was the key thing. Taking those early dragons, and then whilst he wasn't even necessarily in a position to shut down zone or anything like that, the neutral objectives were always BDSA favored. In fact, I don't think they got a single neutral objective. They had both the heralds, they had all the dragons. Was that by objectives? That might have even been a perfect game. I can't even recall ESCA.
In terms, 2 towers were taken by ESCA.
2 towers were taken. Yeah, that's right. So it was pretty close. It felt. I mean, for me to even think, was it a perfect game? It should kind of let you know how dominant BDSA were in throughout the majority of that. And I don't think there's necessarily much fault on Zona's part. I just feel like the pick in the context of that game just can't really achieve too much. I think it was a bold thing to go for Nocturne in a situation where you see the picks that you see that are already pretty good at dealing with dive. And it could have just been the fact of Zona's champion pool was very pinched, right? Things like the Jarvan wouldn't have been a good pick there. Udyr wouldn't have been a good pick. It was banned away by BDSA anyway. What do you even go towards at that point? Because, I mean, Veigar probably feels kind of bad to play in that game. Maybe Lee Sin, but Zona hasn't really shown too much Lee Sin in recency. So maybe not something that he's necessarily super comfortable playing into a composition as complex to attack perhaps as that.
Nah, just slap him on the Sejuani, it'll be fine. But I've been told that we've got an updated schedule, updated standings even. Sorry about that one. Where, as you can see, Bifrost sitting Kings of the Castle 3 and 1. We're not going to see them again until the latter half of the day. But FnaticTQ, we're about to see in our third match of the day up against Team ESCA Gaming, who need a win even to keep their hopes alive. BDS Academy, of course, winning that one, tied up with the Super League of Representatives. They'll be taking on Bifrost in game number 4. But for me, Jamada, maybe very mildly surprised by how things have shaped up in the first couple of matches.
Yeah, no, I think so as well, right? I think the fact that FnaticTQ, Team Kesso rather, looks so... There's loads of words I can use, really. They just don't look themselves, right? I think that's... Whatever the word I use, it doesn't really matter. They just don't look their usual selves. At least, you know, so far today against Bifrost. Also, you know, characteristically in that sort of mid to late game stages, as the points we made from game 1 carry over into this. We need to see maybe a resurgence of confidence. I do wonder about things like the mentality, right? They've just watched ESCA kind of get blasted by BDSA. Will they be able to go into this one and say, okay, it doesn't matter that we lost last week, we can just come into this game, just outright win anyway? I think it's going to be revealed to us. I hope for their sake that they can, because Fnatic, Team Kesso were looking like one of our favorites for the entire tournament, alongside the LFL teams, of course, Oscarinin, MAXI, Baca, Bean, Rhuckz, top to bot. Of course, we know a lot about this team and what they're capable of, but so far it just feels like they haven't been playing up to that ceiling and that level of precision and conciseness that we expect from them.
Yeah, it's worrying for them as a team that came into this one wanting to win the entire tournament, up against now ESCA, HeSSZero, Zona, Mrozku, HARPOON, and Marlon. You're familiar with them if you were watching last game, and for them, Ultra League representation, they've still, of course, got Ego Rogue, still potentially going to qualify out. We'll have to find out about them tomorrow as their group will be finalized, but they need to pull out a strong performance here to go up against a wounded Fnatic Team Kesso, who also need to find victories, because if this is an ESCA win, things start looking a little bit spicy.
I'm not going to say that I'm hoping for the 3-3 meme timeline, but what I am saying is that if ESCA win this game, there's still a chance, all right? There is still a chance. I think losing this game, it won't necessarily put them... I think it might just put them out of contention for even making it to top 2, but I think because of how close the standings are, there might be some weird world. Maybe I'd have to go...
I don't think
but 2-4 is typically just not the threshold. It's normally 3-3. But we do make our way into pick bans. Gangplank, Jace banned away from Oscarinin, just like Bifrost did in game number 1. Akali, Yone does join the ban table this time around. Mrozku won't have his hands on it for a second game in a row, whereas Jarvan also joins ban. I think attacking the right areas, right, removing away Mrozku's comfort, even though he didn't get much done in the game just gone by, you could see the threat, the potential of the Yone playing into it as well. You might not necessarily scrimmage to the champion. FnaticTQ, I think, doing the right thing, and LeBlanc will also join the ban table, which leaves the bear, the Volibear, which is... Yeah, and Zeri. So, I mean, how will ESCA want to respond to this? It's a bit of a loaded draft now, where you have things like the Volibear get snapped up. Now you have the Zeri come in. You could go for, of course, the Ahri as well. And now things just start to look really hard for Fnatic if you're not bringing lockdown tools. You need to bring something that can shut down the Zeri. And we could just see the immediate Lucian Nami rotation, because we've already seen it in this matchup. And it kind of means that, you know, on Marlon's part, going into something super sort of like scaly like the Yuumi is a pretty risky thing to do. So they're going to go for the more aggressive style in the Nautilus. I think that's definitely the right adaptation. It does leave Zona's champion pool to get pinched, which we just saw happen. So ESCA not having too much priority on their jungle pit today. We'll see whether that changes in their final game of the day as well. But bans can now come in, and I expect anything towards Baca that they suspect might give Mrozku a hard time in the mid lane Vex makes a whole bunch of sense. Whether they want to go down the likes of, I don't even know, beyond that. I mean, Victor could also be something if you just don't want to have to deal with sort of like a team fight-esque composition, you know, with this very strong bottom side, which will then sort of provide a bit of a bridge, right? Something that you can build off of towards Baca scaling on a hyper carry in the mid lane. Could also be a very viable option, of course, taking away a global presence like Twisted Fate. However, Baca is also probably the next, if not the smartest thing, really. And Nocturne taken away. They might just go for the Udyr. I think there's no harm in doing it because Zone has shown it and it can be pretty obnoxious. And I think with the composition you have right now, you don't necessarily deal with Udyr that well. So I think it could be a pretty strong ban. They instead go down the route of the Xin Zhao. So Udyr could come in because there's not too much like easy to use tools to lock him down, but Lee Sin being hovered, it was an option last game. Wasn't picked up then, but it will be picked up now.
I think the fear for me is that if you pick up the Udyr in this situation, the other team picks up the Veigar, and then you're a pretty sad man.
I mean, they might do it anyway.
They're considering it, which don't do it.
I mean, you'll be mad, but at the end of the day...
It's the correct decision, but don't do it.
Yeah, so Viperune has a thing against Veigar. Doesn't matter, he's just being a big baby. Veigar would make so much sense here because of all of the mobility, of course, of the composition of ESCA, and of course the one-to-one into the Ahri, being able to lock her down inside that baby cage. You can no longer use the Spear Rush. It's definitely a great response, and the Gnar will come out as a blind into HeSSZero's champion pool. We'll see what he wants to actually take his hands upon this time. I would expect the Camille beat me to my own point in the hover, and it will provide, of course, a pretty strong laning phase. But I think, much like game one, what we saw from Bifrost, I want to see Zona try and supplement whatever the pick is. If it ends up actually being the anything else, really, if it's going to be a carry, instead they pivot off and towards the Ornn, which obviously is now going to provide a slightly different scope. This is more to do now truly with front-to-back team fighting, right? Trying to find picks with the Nautilus, with the Ornn, and then having, you know, the Ahri try and dash in, follow up on the CC, the Zeri as well, trying to be as slippery as possible. I do fear for the bottom lane of ESCA in terms of the power of Lucian, Nami. Fnatic, Team Kesso are a team that have, you know, shown to be able to utilize this lane duo very proficiently. But with, you know, a very aggressive pickup in the Nautilus, maybe Zona can get down there and try and shut down that lane. Because of course, Rhuckz on the Nami can be very vulnerable to just getting 100-0 very easily.
I'm very excited to see how ESCA decide to play out these team fights, because as you mentioned, it's going to be a more traditional front to back. But when you're playing against a Gnar, a Volibear, a Nami, and a Veigar, the avenues for engagement and the avenues for fighting are not always head on, let's just run down the obvious route, because the obvious route will have a big wave or a baby cage or a really angry polar bear, which you can't necessarily fight through when you haven't gotten all the damage in the world, right? Because you've gone for that all on the top side, which gives you the engagement, but he's not going to be providing that much damage. If Ahri's maybe looking more for a flanky situation, that can be an option. But I'm intrigued as to how they want to play this one out, because we look at the teams so frequently, we look at the teams and think, theoretically, this is the optimal way for this composition to be played based on our own knowledge. But teams aren't always able to translate that onto the Rift, but we are able to transition onto the Rift for our third game of the day. FnaticTQ on the blue side, up against Team ESCA Gaming on the red. Superliga versus Ultraliga. Fnatic Team KSO do not have the head-to-head in this matchup, actually. If you remember, of course, Team ESCA Gaming winning the base race in that last matchup. Intrigued to see what the response is going to be here.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, that was Fnatic's game to win. And they should be 3-1, probably, had they closed out that game. But they lost it, and now ESCA, that's how you said, that 3-3 dream, very much alive, and especially when you take into consideration Fnatic's first game of the day into Bifrost, wasn't necessarily the most positive look. How is the mental doing after that game break? I think they definitely have some pretty decent tools across the board to work with in the early stages. The scaling isn't too terrible either, but I will say, if you're staring down the barrel of, you know, Zeri with not, you know, the most consistent ways of locking her down, I think you're in for a very tough game. We'll see what they do, however, in the early stages. Because again, Bean, Rhuckz on the Nami Lucian, very proficient, and will be very capable of shutting down a Zeri lane. And you'll see, with the PTA, with the Ignite, I mean, things like just a dash forward, double auto, Q, double auto, the electrocute proc of Nami and all that extra damage will pretty much bring the likes of a Zeri down from 100% HP to pretty much like 30% come level 4 onwards. So It's a scary lane to deal with, and I expect FnaticTQ will go to play into it.
So keep eyes on the junglers to see if Jamada will be proved right or wrong.
Yeah, because
good for me, honestly.
What I will say is I think, like, you know, the zone control tools that are available to FnaticTQ to deal with some of the mobility is definitely good. I just feel like the response of, you know, having to deal with depth charge, Call of the Forge God, trying to lock down, you know, mobile champions can be difficult when you're not, you know, using kind of point and click tools, right? And that's my only big fear for Fnatic Team Queso. But if they can shut all of that down before it even gets started, they don't even necessarily have to worry about it.
Well, my big fear for Fnatic Team Queso in this game specifically is coming off the back of a loss earlier in the day. They're up against oh my word, Harpoon. Where's your health bar gone, buddy? Beam might be going the same direction though as the Ignite is running down. He's got support coming in from xeonerr. Rhuckz is going to go low, get rooted up, damage coming on down, and this one's Team ESCA First Blood going the way of xeonerr on the Lee Sin.
Whoa.
Ooh, if that had hit the tower, Marlon, yeah, I think he knows.
Had it hit the tower, had it hit Bean, somebody would have died. That's for sure. As First Blood goes over to ESCA. Great proactivity. I think xeonerr actually pulled himself off a camp, or maybe he did just do Gromp into the bottom side through the lane. Either way,
HeSSZero going aggressively, damage coming down. Gnar survive this one. Actually, Oscarinin and turns it around with the flash. Secures the solo kill.
And it's vision that denies that play. If you're wondering why that looked so awkward from HeSSZero, no vision in that bush. I think it cancelled an auto attack, and then he tried to get inside the bush to auto attack again, and then he cancelled it by using a searing charge. Really awkward set of events there by HeSSZero. Oscarinin, I think, getting away with a bit of daylight robbery, to be honest with you. And I'm glad that we have the replay straight away, because I'm pretty sure if we toggle the vision over to ESCA's side, you'll see he just loses vision in the bush. And that's what stops him, because, I mean, Oscarinin just feeling confident in Gnar, right? It makes sense. You get it. He goes back down into mini. He has the barrel proc, goes for the auto. It doesn't even get to start. I mean, he just cancels it when he walks in the bush. And then he goes to the searing charge, and the flash away from that secures Oscarinin his solo kill. HeSSZero just, I'm not even sure. Fumble of errors. But it is the Ornn lane, so it's not the end of the world, fortunately. It's not like he's just lost in a super volatile lane. And he still will be able to provide a lot for his team. But now Oscarinin, potentially a platform to use with that additional gold.
Yeah, is participating in Cull Gaming. Has grabbed that one, so going to be investing in his future a little bit, as Rhuckz is just going to hang around and wait for his marksman to return. Actually secures himself a little bit of a... Actually lost out on the cannon, which is very devastating for the Nami, not able to last hit down there. Not called upon too often, though. You've got to imagine to be practicing last hits under tower, but...
See,
ESCA
Will,
hanging around.
What you say, the simple response is -1. you don't say anything, I'll just say -1. As xeonerr is up here guarding HeSSZero on this wave crash. Bubble lands, could be a big chunk onto Marlon, but Bean not feeling the dash forward. As this lane, after that early gank, been pretty tame for Bean and Rhuckz so far, but again, on that first trade, we did see the power of the burst, and I think Harpoon and Marlon read the map really well. Not a lot of vision in the mid lane down towards the river. Actually, that lane ward might have given them all the information they need once they see Baca fog towards the bottom side. And MAXI will just pick up this dragon. I won't say for free, because actually, if you take a look at the minimap, xeonerr is making his way down towards the river on the bottom side, though. Fight's breaking out.
Bean needs to be very, very careful. The damage coming down onto him is massive. It's going to be a kill over to Harpoon. Rhuckz now on his own.
No.
xeonerr is coming on through. MAXI's gone low. This is disaster.
He has no flash.
For Fnatic Team Queso. He has no flash. He's got no life. He goes down. xeonerr secures himself. No? Huh?
The Sky Splitter! He cast it before he died for the shield, and xeonerr didn't see it, so he doesn't cast the smite because he thinks he has the dragon, and it steals it for Fnatic. You can't. You can't make that one up.
Nah, that's 10 uninstalls across the board is what that is. Let's have another look at this one, because it starts with actually a very nice play from ESCA in the bot side.
Yeah, and it's not even Bean taking any tower damage. It's just a good response, and this is why the Nautilus can be used so efficiently to shut it down. And I'm pretty sure he cast the Sky Split because he wants the shield right before he dies. And he just doesn't see it. And he just doesn't smite. And I think Mrozku's damage maybe doesn't help him, of course, 450 on the smite. Not saying it's Mrozku's fault, of course, but it just brings it down to an awkward number where, of course, that Sky Splitter does max % HP damage, so a lot of damage comes out, steals the dragon away.
You can't make a W without taking a couple of L's.
Yeah,
and the dragon secured by FnaticTQ Queso, so that's cool.
Yeah.
They did lose out a couple of lives for it, but at the end of the day, not the end of all things. xeonerr is going to find MAXI on his big raptors and will grab up the big one and actually scare away the Volibear, who has been unable to find too much going forward, but will be hitting level 6 very, very shortly. A lot of damage going down onto the Ornn on the top side. Oscarinin just grabs another solo kill. This time it's not a fumble by the Ornn, it's all about the Gnar.
Yeah, Gnar. Oscarinin does a great job there. We'll say HeSSZero does reply very responsibly, using that Bellows Breath to stop himself from getting Gnar ulted, but there's just too much damage at the end of the day. Get stunned up eventually. The Boulder Tusk and the War Attack is enough, and that's a big wave to miss, and now that's where things start to get a bit tricky, right? You die on a stacked wave, you lose out on a couple of plates. Now Oscarinin is going to take over that side lane. The pressure is going to be in his favor. It's going to be annoying to ever try and find your way onto him. Almost at the Hullbreaker, just needs the combined cost now. And on the bottom side as well, it will be said, at the very least for Fnatic, or in favor of ESCA, that Bean and Rhuckz haven't been, fortunately, as threatening as perhaps they could have been. I mean, they have threatened dives, but unfortunately the fangs haven't exactly been sharp on them. And HARPOON and Marlon in particular has responded really well in locking down that bottom side. So I kind of want to see ESCA try and just play into it a little bit more. Right now, I think you try and play into the Ornn, into the Gnar. It's just going to be tough to ever really lock him down, or even the mid lane could work too.
Baca in a lot of trouble. One side is Least, and the other side's Ahri. The cage comes up. Mrozku dives through, manages to secure the kill with the flash. Great stuff from ESCA.
Yeah, great stuff. They need to be proactive, continue to push the envelope here. Make sure that they are the ones first to the play, and now they will pick up that Rift Herald on the back of it as well. The only issue is Oscarinin has priority in the top side and also has Mega Gnar, so MAXI's going to come through here. Will be spotted out by this control ward. But I think Fnatic, they can still brute force this. Baca will have teleport as soon as he comes back out onto the map. And Mrozku, you can see, having expended his ultimate, having gotten in a couple of waves underneath the tower, will go for the reset. So ESCA not able to pick that one up, and now it'll be a Herald going over to FnaticTQ Queso.
Should be. I don't think there's going to be any kind of response. ESCA not hugely interested in going for a weaker play, and will be backing away. And even with all the aggression, the positive plays and skirmishes we've seen, as you can see on top of your screen, gold pretty much even. And on the bottom of your screen, you can see where advantages or disadvantages lie. The jungle is a huge gap, but so is the top lane.
Yeah, and Bean,
Marlon looking towards Bean. Nice wave, but it's not going to stop Nautilus coming on through. He's nautical himself, but takes a whole heap of damage and has to back away as xeonerr takes a couple of shots to keep him alive. Close, but no cigar.
Yeah, close but no cigar. Great time as Oscarinin is just diving HeSSZero.
Yeah, the side of the map that you'd think he'd be on. The damage coming through is good, but HeSSZero survives this time around.
It does survive, and great again from Marlon as well. He casts his dredge line at a particular time where he gets knocked up, but because his dredge line's flying, he just kind of flies through the wave. I mean, it feels pretty low accurate anyway. But not able to fully lock down Bean in time for the rest of his team to follow up. And Oscarinin is looking at a 5-plate lane. Pretty much by himself. And I'd imagine he probably has the gold for the Hullbreaker as well. The coal's almost stacked up. Definitely a bit of a problem lane for ESCA, but again, if they can continue to play through mid, continue to play through the bottom lane, it's definitely something that they can deal with. It's just going to be Oscarinin having so much pressure on the side lane from now on.
And we talked about the Ornn dying in those early stages not necessarily being a disaster in an Ornn lane, but it's starting to look more and more problematic for ESCA as Oscarinin keeps putting pressure down, playing the advantage, getting the extra kill, getting all the tower plates, and may well get the tower at the 11-minute mark. Actually going to run on through, doesn't want to take it down just yet, believes the minions have what it takes, and it's going to be able to dive through and steal away the Rhuckz. So HeSSZero really just being strangled out of this game.
He's being manhandled in this lane. Plain and simple. Up over 50 CS once this wave is eaten. Plus all of that additional gold, and actually, once the Herald goes down, if it goes down even, we've got a play coming in.
Might be in trouble. Zone is actually going to turn his attention towards MAXI and thinking that he doesn't actually want to engage. on the Volibear. Will just dive away onto
Oh my
Marlon,
God,
who's going to look for the ring gauge. So HARPOON on the back, though, could get some damage down. Nice ult, but will he be able to get the auto attacks down? Nice kick, knocks up into two. Mrozku's on the way here. Will pick up the first kill of the fight onto Bean. Bean is going to go down as HARPOON secures him. It's 2 for none as ESCA take the fight.
Yeah, great stuff by ESCA. I mean, it's what I've said I wanted to see from them, right? They're losing out on the top side, go so heavily. Utilize the strengths that you have in the bottom side right now. Try and pick on Bean. He had no flash from the previous play, and they do just that. The kick from Zona was probably not as intended as he probably wanted it to be, but it still ended up lining up perfectly. Gets a double knock up, and it secures them 2 kills, and it will get them this dragon. So no threat, like their first game of the day, of an early soul being picked up by Fnatic Team Kesso. The Mountain Soul will be what we have, and Rift as Herald comes in. And it's just Fnatic trying to spread the gold a little bit, right? Trying to get this Lucian Nami lane going, as it hasn't gone to plan realistically. The depth charge comes in. It's kind of, you know, dissuaded by MAXI being here. The charge stops, and all of a sudden Marlon just says, all right, it's time to go. He's looking for Rhuckz, I think, more often than he's not, but actually lines up on to MAXI, and yeah, just ends up kicking Rhuckz. I think he wanted to kick MAXI perhaps into Bean. Instead, kicks Rhuckz into MAXI. Doesn't land onto Bean, but Bean still ends up dying once that rotation comes in. And it's just great first move as well from Mrozku to ensure that they have the numbers down there on the back end of this play. ESCA playing more to their conditions this game than they were in game number 1 for them. Game number 2 of the day, of course. Trying to keep their hopes of making it to the knockout stages alive.
And those hopes are slim as it is. It is possible, but of course, going 3-3, you need other teams to do you a bit of a favor. But as it stands, putting up a decent contest, if nothing else, to try and win out this game and keep themselves in the running. Oscarinin, on the other hand, not super interested in giving them an opportunity. It's just continuing his tirade in the top lane. The dominance of this Gnar cannot be overstated at the moment.
He has had a phenomenal laning phase so far. And we'll see what value you can get out of the team fighting later on into the game. Right now, Fnatic, despite the bottom side of the map not going really in their favor, still have themselves a gold lead. And what I wanted to ask for was gold earlier on, but I'm gonna have to hold on the point because it looks like ESCA in general are making a rotation down to this side of the map, and Bean Rhuckz, they're just gonna have to give up on the tower.
They're just letting him know he's there, but teleport coming in behind. Actually, this one could be a fight for Fnatic Team Queso is there, turning the flankers into the flankies. As Oscarinin dives over the wall, first time that he's going to get involved outside of the top lane, gets stunned up. A lot of damage going down onto him, actually, and Gnar in mini form isn't even getting angry yet, so has to scarper away. The damage coming on through from the culling is pretty nice. Rhuckz takes the bullet, takes the damage, and will have to swim off Marlon as well. Goes low. There's a lot of flashing, blinking health bars as HARPOON's speeding forward, looking for something, trying to get on top of anyone, but he can only find MAXI, who, not particularly damaged, will be able to skate out of the baby cage as the Veigar looks for a pickup. But at the end of the skirmish, a lot of damage, a lot of bark, but no real bite.
Yeah, no real bite. No one dies. And actually, I think Fnatic looking for that play. I'm not sure if HeSSZero traded in the teleport before or after the play. For that exhaust, you'd expect would have been before. So that was true numbers advantage. Fnatic weren't able to capitalize. Great movement from ESCA on the way out. Did get Zona's flash, but I mean, Baca also had to flash. I think trying to bring down your 2-0-0 Gnar, who's as fed as that, and not actually yielding any resources, got to feel a little bit bad. As we approach the next dragon, 2 minutes time, but before that, Herald will also spawn up. I think Fnatic probably look to prioritize that. And thank you, observers. You actually beat me to my request, as the reason why the gold is even remotely even right now, despite the rest of the state of the map, is because of top lane. Oscarinin got all of those plates by himself. He didn't even have really, I think, any help from MAXI. I don't think MAXI ever went up towards the top side. That was just pure 1v1. It's almost a 4k gold lead. Approaching a second item. Already has the whole breaker. And it's about how he's going to be able to use this. Of course, that sort of conditional team fight strength of Mega Gnar is where all of the value comes from. Let's hope for Fnatic Team Kesso after that game 1 that they had, that they can have Oscarinin show up big in this game. I think going 2-0 or 0-2 rather, going into your final game against BDSA is going to feel crushing.
That would be a very tough situation to play in, and there'd be motivation to be sure, but heads might have started to drop, which we never like to see in a team. And for ESCA, of course, remind you, they're coming off the back of a pretty dominant loss right? They weren't fully at the races when they came up against BDS Academy mere minutes ago. Much less than an hour. MAXI now stepping forward will be called out by xeonerr, who doesn't want to engage because there's enough support behind him. But both of these teams, one of them is going to go 0-2 into their final game of the day. If it's ESCA, they may already be out. If it's Fnatic Team Queso, there would have to be a big turnaround of form. And overall, here at the Amazon European Masters, we haven't necessarily seen teams that have done particularly well in the first round robin doing that amazingly in the second round robin. You look at X7 for an example, who really fell off in their second day of games. So we have to hold that as it looks like this dragon is going to be a point of contention as both teams line up scrimmage.
They do line up scrimmage. Fnatic get that Herald charge in the bottom side, and that Herald's actually still going. So we'll see what happens. Oscarinin almost has Mega Gnar, and that's going to be dangerous for Zona and the rest of the team to fight into, but they're fighting into it anyway.
Oscarinin is getting angry. He's looking for a target. He can't find one. Diving into bit, finds Harpoon all alone, but Marlon's going to step forward. He's going to flash away, but I think the Zeri is toast, goes down. Marlon is low as well, but Mrozku now can return to the front of the fight, getting the damage, getting the assassination, but it's 3v2 as Mrozku looks for a little bit more damage. The Dragon will be helping him out somewhat, but it's not really going to matter. The charm goes wide. The Dragon is secured by Fnatic Team Queso, and the Ahri will move down towards the bot side. That fight, much better from FnaticTQ.
Yeah, much better. Able to pick up the targets that they needed to. Backline dive onto Harpoon and Marlon. No one was really there to keep him alive. HeSSZero approaching from a different angle. Gets the Ornn down, but doesn't really get much else achieved. And with Harpoon and Marlon kind of just falling to the wayside, Zona not being able to find a key target to find a kick on perhaps or anything of true tangible product. Means that ESCA just don't have a successful team fight, and Team Queso get a much needed win given how things were looking. Get a look at it, and like we said, HeSSZero on the top side only really able to cool the Ornn down, and that's about it. But on the bottom side you can see it's a little bit split. Mrozku and Zona do find quite a bit of backline access, and they do pick up Rhuckz, but the issue is beyond that they kind of lose out too on their own backline in Marlon and Harpoon. They weren't really able to find much else. Zona gets pretty much one shot by the Veigar. And if you could have got his kick out, maybe this fight could look different. Health bars a little bit lower for Mrozku to work with, but fortunately wasn't the case.
And that's the first time we've really seen FnaticTQ dominate a team fight, dominate an engagement, picking themselves up the second dragon, with the dragons being shared and maybe being a little bit slower on the uptake. It does mean that Soul is a much later win condition than we've seen potentially. Definitely in game number 2 where it was 4-0, simple job. This time around it's going to be something that's more on the back of the mind rather than a forefront win condition. But Harpoon trying to push in that top side and get himself in a nice position, because when Baron comes onto the map, are we likely to see any real play around it in the next few minutes?
I mean, I think there's not much likelihood just yet. AD carries not yet 2 items. I think for Fnatic, if they can get back up to 2 items, then maybe there's definitely an angle for it. Veigar, one of those mages that does burn through Baron quite quickly. Being nowhere near second item though. I think that's going to slow them down. So they're really going to have to, you know, win out on a skirmish or a team fight, suffocate ESCA out of vision on the top side to be able to get a Baron down. And I mean, they aren't doing that bad of a job at it right now. Not too much vision on the top side for them to work with, but could actually end up getting a bit pincered, or maybe Oscarinin gets turned onto instead.
Yeah, he's putting some damage down into Mrozku and has gone mega, so could look for an engagement, could look for a because there's a lot of them around here. Oscarinin moving forward, does have flash available, but can't find an easy target, can't find a juicy enough target. You've got to imagine there's more the thought process, and will go back mini, go back mid, and try and siege down this tower. Getting the demolish proc off will do a decent amount of damage, but Oscarinin almost steps into the stun, but manages to quickly adjust his trajectory and walk away. But you've got to feel like ESCA playing on the back foot a little bit in the past couple of minutes, and I don't know if that should really be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the momentum, right, of the game right now. Fnatic winning out that team fight, then being able to snowball it into pressure on the map. I think when you consider how far ahead Oscarinin is of HeSSZero, that's what makes up still, don't forget, a large chunk of this gold lead. So ESCA, they are still, you know, they're not necessarily out of the game, right? The gold is a little bit contextual in this kind of game where somebody gets such a large individual lead on their opponent in sort of a side lane versus tank lane. Realistically, Harpoon should have 2, yeah, there you go, has 2 items up on Bean. Mrozku also does have 2 items in comparison to Baca's Everfrost, and building towards a death cap, so a very expensive item, but once he has it, it will provide a lot of value. ESCA not quite out of it yet, despite a pretty sizable 4k gold lead. They just need another favorable fight to bring them back into good standing, right? And actually here, thank you, observers, highlighting the point exactly. 2k more or less for Harpoon in the bottom side over Bean. Pretty sizable gold difference. In the mid lane, it's about even. And in the jungle, actually, MAXI's pulled back a lot. But again, a lot of this gold difference is it's just the top lane. I mean, look at it, it's almost double for Oscarinin.
Do you remember at level 3
right now
when you said, the on dying here, it's probably not that big a deal? Jamada, it's become quite a big deal.
The level 3 death wasn't a big deal. The issue
is.
I think the issue was actually he is angry, but so I think the issue probably was the fact that HeSSZero then died afterwards and lost the stacked wave and 3 plates or 2 plates. That was a big problem.
Okay, he's got mini. This could be the opportunity for ESCA to push forward and try and find something, but it looks like Oscarinin is actually the one who's looking for a fight, gets charmed up, a lot of damage going down onto Gnar. Needs to be careful. Harpoon pops over the ultimate. It's going to be looking for those auto attacks, but Oscarinin goes golden and won't be caught out. Nice stun onto one. It's only onto Ornn, but he's still a target that you can look to burn low. He goes half health. No engage there from Marlon, but Harpoon explodes. It's Oscarinin with the killer now on the side. You can see MAXI diving forward, goes golden, and the rest of his team will turn up to save him. Both members who attacked him go down. The Gnar zones everyone else away, gets the kill onto Mrozku as he does. That could be it.
They could just end. They just ARAM down mid at the tier 2 of on ESCA's side of the map. I think that's the game. They should just be able to push out on end. We'll see whether or not they decide to take just the inhibitor or not, but I think this is just the game over. FnaticTQ on the drop of a hat, it seems, will take down ESCA and redeem their mistakes against them in week 1. Inhibitor down, Nexus open. People are here, they've respawned.
Oh, I don't know. There's not much of a defense there from ESCA. They will fall. They will be eliminated from making it to playoffs and will be confirmed 4th place in the group. Fnatic Team Queso still fight their way towards potential qualification in this one. But, I mean, how did that happen?
I mean, a lot of it did come from Oscarinin's like individual lead on the top side. I like how I was making the point. I feel like the game state, whilst the momentum of the game was definitely in FnaticTQ's favor, and they were obviously pushing through the map to try and provide setup for themselves on the neutrals. It just wasn't a position I felt like they were gonna end the game on that push. But I think ESCA just kind of handshake the ARAM down mid and end the game off the back of it. I think they were in a position where they were gonna probably, pivot towards the Baron, right? Off the back of that push, or the Dragon rather, and then start to look towards the Baron. But unfortunately, they just couldn't, for ESCA, actually hold on beyond that fight because of where they took it.
And we're going to be speaking to Rhuckz in a moment. I'm just going to wait for him to be dragged in. Unfortunately, I can't see the screen currently, so I can't see when his face will arrive on our broadcast. Hey, okay, I can see our faces on the screen. That's for us.
So I know we want to stream, but
yeah. We don't actually want to. We don't care about seeing Rhuckz particularly. It's just about seeing our own faces. We're very narcissistic like that. But Rhuckz is going to be joining us to talk about that massive victory here for Fnatic Team K. So there he is on the bottom of our screen. Massive congratulations on the win. How does the team feel about taking down ESCA and keeping your hopes alive for qualification?
I mean, a win is always a win, and it's kind of relieving, but we really need to play better because I think today's level has been very low, and we shouldn't even be fighting to qualify. We should just qualify, and I think this is a rough day.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense, right? I think your own expectations probably match our own expectations of you guys too. The expectations of probably just straight up qualifying. I want to ask, obviously you say, you're having a bit of a bad day, you guys aren't performing well. What are some of the things, at least from your perspective, at the moment, do you feel like aren't quite going right all of the time? Obviously, this is a very dominating game against a bit of a struggling ESCA, but game 1 obviously looked kind of rough today.
I think we are just very unfocused and making a lot of mistakes early, which are not normal for us, at least. I think in general, we are just having a bad day, and unfortunately, having a bad day when you play 3 games is not the best. So we just have to step it up now because it's when it matters.
Absolutely. And while it has been a difficult day, winning this last game has put you very much in the conversation for qualification. My final question for you is, as a team, is there anything that you're looking to do very specifically in this final matchup to try and guarantee yourself qualification into the playoff stages?
We are not going to do anything special. I think we'll just play our game like we always do and try to focus up, because I think this is actually a matter of focus. I think we are still pretty fine, I would say, and we just need to play our game, because I think we are our own enemies right now, and that's what matters.
Amazing. Well, it's always great to talk to you. Congratulations on the win and good luck in your final matchup of these group stage games.
Thank you.
It's always great to hear someone being very grounded about their potential to get through to the next round. We're going to jump to a short break, but when we come back, when the broadcast comes back, we're going to be taking you through Bifrost up against BDS Academy, but it won't be us. It'll be Initializer Nightmare taking you through the latter half of the day. So thank you for joining us, and stay tuned because there'll be more Amazon European Masters right after the break.